When the pandemic happened, this weight lifted off my shoulders and a message came to me is, now we can begin. And at that very moment, my whole life kind of flashed through before my eyes and I realized every crazy thing, every trauma, everything made sense. It all had a purpose and a meaning to get me prepared for this moment. And so I decided to, I saw the ingredients of the injection called a vaccine. I knew what they were. I knew everything, and it was everything put together. It was all about controlling people and manipulating them and depopulating them, and in terrible ways, more than people realize. And
to cause suffering intentionally.
And I decided to do an impromptu video, and it went viral. I didn't plan on speaking out again. I didn't plan on moving back to the United States, but one thing led to another, where I realized not many people knew about the subject. So I just started to continue to educate people and bring these topics to light. And then at some point I looked at the contents of the vials under the microscope myself to make sure that what they were telling us they're putting in really is what they're putting in. And so, of course, I saw alarming things.
Some of the things you discovered under the microscope were kind of alarming, to say the least. There's that. I've heard people talking about the time where you looked, or you talking about it, where you felt like something was looking back at you.
Yeah. So that was Moderna vial from the state of Georgia.
It sounds unbelievable. And someone would say, well, if you didn't capture this, how can we verify it's true? Or if no one else saw this? I
had a colleague with me that saw it with me. And when I say I felt like it was sentient, that's just my feeling. I mean, I don't have any proof of that. But that was unbelievable. And of course I doubted it. Well, there has to be a fluke, but this is a really strange thing. It couldn't have been a contamination. I mean, there's nothing around there. It was more of like a water parasite, and this is something completely out of the realm of my knowledge, or I didn't learn anything about this either. I didn't have any preconceived notions of this. So another batch came, and I looked from a different source, and I saw one of the same things again. And at that moment, I did cry, because this was obviously something to be looked at. This is something to take seriously. And I did not have any conception of why this could be inside of these injections.
Had you seen those things when we spoke last year at this time? Or is it after that you saw these things?
I don't really remember now.
June of last year?
It was probably right after that.
Yeah.
And so I started to research this organism and transhumanism, since this, in my opinion, these injections are part of the transhumanist movement. What would they want with this? Because I had no idea. And immediately this organism pops up. This is a favorite of the transhumanists. They love it because this organism is considered immortal in the lab. They were thinking of using one of its genes, and it has jumping genes. It can translocate its gene on the host. And they were hoping that it could translocate a gene onto the human host and therefore help a human become immortal, or at least help them regenerate. So if you cut off your hand, another one would grow. They were also using it for, it has a mesh network. It can actually have its own nervous system, meaning if you have many in a body, a host body, technically then that other nervous system could be remotely accessed. So they use the example of a fish in the water with these parasites. They could affect the parasite inside the fish and make the fish move.
Oh, wow. And MK Ultra was really all about trying to do remote control. They could remote control dogs and things like this in experiments.
So the point is that this is a favorite organism of the transhumanists. They do have a lot going on with it. They have synthesized this one particular water parasite, called it Cynthia. So I don't think it's just coincidence now that I'm finding it in the vials and then seeing that. And then the Polish Dr. Zalewski, he found some organisms there that were, to me, more frightening than what I saw. And then a batch of
parasites?
Pfizer.
Parasites, no?
He analyzed them. They were actually made of metals, like aluminum and carbon, actually.
Is that Hydra?
Technically, that wouldn't be a Hydra. That would be a synthetic organism that would kind of look like Hydra, but it wasn't, no.
So it's an actual life form, but it's like a hybrid?
Probably, yeah, a biosyn, something like that. Now, what am I looking at? I'm just looking at it visually. I don't know exactly. But in Pfizer batches, seeing some similar things. They could also look like something called polypodium. It's in the same family. But this has been seen over and over again in other countries as well. I don't see them in all the batches. I don't know. I mean, I'm just telling people what I'm seeing. Maybe it's just a contamination in their manufacturing plant, but it needs to stop. We have to look at this. Some phlebotomists or some people that look at live blood analysis, which I have not done, they've seen some of these parasites looking things in the blood. It's something that we need to look into. We need to know why they're there. We need to really put a moratorium, because this is not informed consent, right? What I'm more concerned about, though, is all the synthetic, the supercomputing material that appears to be in these vials. So the graphene-like substances, the silicon wafers, there's different substances like that.
Do you think dynabeads? Like dynabeads, like supermagnets?
I'm not sure if they're in there, but definitely these foreign structures are in there in all the vials.
Yeah.
That's what's prominent.
And then you're saying that these technologies are there and perhaps they're almost dormant right now, and it could be activated and
that, or it's a cumulative effect. You can get some building blocks in your body, and then you get another shot, another shot, another shot. It's building upon itself. It's making more of a synthetic component inside the body, so that they can work as biosensors. They can accumulate data from your body and then wirelessly transmit this information 24/7. This goes along with the business owners meeting I told you about in 2014-ish that I went to, that they said that they would use this technology. They were going to go launch it, and they never said when the date was. So this goes along with the business owners meeting. This goes along with the scientific meeting, and this goes along with the World Economic Forum, and all of the countries, including our country, that said we will all be linked up to the Internet of Things, or Internet of Bodies, and they want it to be by 2027. So all of these things do coincide with each other. They do correlate with each other.
Wireless technology integrated with the human body was nothing more than science fiction. But today, Wi-Fi connected devices like heart rate monitors and sleep trackers have become common parts of American life. How has bionic technology evolved so quickly from science fiction to reality? And what could this Internet of Bodies mean for our lives moving forward? RAND researchers are studying this phenomenon and what consumers and policymakers need to know as we veer into uncharted territory.
The Internet of Bodies, or IOB, is actually an ecosystem. It's a bunch of devices that are connected to the Internet that contain software and that either collect personal health data about you or can alter the body's function. We think of the Internet of Bodies as this collection of all these devices, as well as all the data that the devices are gathering about you. And in healthcare, Internet of Bodies has been around for quite a while. With the advent of the Internet, it makes a lot of sense to connect your pacemaker to the Internet so that your doctor can be automatically notified if something weird happens, if there's an anomaly. It's natural in a lot of ways to want to understand more about your body, how it functions, how well it's doing.
IOB devices could revolutionize healthcare. Unprecedented amounts of personal health data could inform treatment plans that are completely tailored to a patient's needs.
There are pills now that have an electronic sensor that let a healthcare provider know whether you have taken the medication. Other things like precision medicine. So precision medicine is the idea of creating pharmaceuticals or treatment like specifically for your body, for your personalized treatment. And I think IOB could really help with that, because nowadays a lot of healthcare is based more on, average reactions, whereas with data from IOB devices, you might be able to really more precisely treat a certain disease.
But the Internet of Bodies won't be a cure-all. In fact, the largely unregulated market poses risks to the uniquely sensitive data these devices collect.
First of all, there's the cyber risk of an actor potentially hacking into the system, whatever it might be. There's the privacy risk of all this data that's being collected, and the regulations about that data are really murky at the moment. And so there's not a lot of clarity into who owns the data, what happens to it, who it gets sold to, how it's being used. And there's even potentially national security and global security risks.
A few examples of these risks have already played out in real life. For instance, in 2018, highly sensitive information about U.S. military activity and base locations was inadvertently revealed by soldiers' fitness trackers. So, this is a pivotal moment. What can we do to make sure we reap the potential benefits of the Internet of Bodies without risking our privacy, security, and personal autonomy?
Consumers should be wary of IOB devices because as it's becoming more and more popular, all of this intimate data is being collected, arguably more intimate data than we've ever really recorded before. There's no clarity on what is being done with that data. With an old mechanical pacemaker, there's no data that was being collected and stored, and you could look at a history of someone's heart rhythms. Because policy tends to lag behind innovative technologies like this, it's probably up to the consumers and to the healthcare patients to really be aware of the devices that they're using and what is happening to their data, and to know what the regulations are in their particular state, because it does vary so much state by state. Even if you think you're not interesting or that nothing will happen with your data, there are a lot of unknowns that I think we need to be careful about.
No, they're not blood clots. And what I'm about to say is going to sound really crazy, but I trust you will look into it. Look into intra-body nano network administered through fax. Just type in those keywords. Then look into transhumanism. Then look into the Internet of Bodies. Then look into how the Internet of Bodies is going to tie into and become the foundation of this new digital financial system that's coming. And then it's all going to make sense. It is self-assembling nanotechnology for the purpose of creating a carbon nanotube network within the human body to make the human body a device that can eventually be linked into the Internet of Bodies. It is biotechnology created through the manipulation of lipids with polyethylene glycol, pegylation. Polyethylene glycol is one of the components that can be used to make hydrogel. And after the self-assembling nano network is administered in the human body, along with nanosensors, which is what those round modulars that people are finding, the next step is a form of a chip, which will probably come in the form of like a quantum dot tattoo that will be initiated for the usage within the digital financial system that is coming. But once that chip is put in place with the intra-body nano network, that will be the authentication and individualization of every human body that has this technology within it, the network and the chip, making them all devices linked into the Internet of Bodies. The psychological, biological, genetic, and physiological data from every single individual will be what backs the new financial system. Information is the new gold. And all of the data being harvested no longer requires permission or notification from anyone that took this jab, because they are now GMOs, which is a product owned by a corporation. The head of that corporation is BlackRock.
It's dependent on ownership of these people who are no longer Homo sapiens. In fact, they renamed them Homo borgiensis. So what human rights does a Homo borgenesis have? Homo borgenesis is the species that they have named vaccinated people, and I use the term vaccinated loosely. The genetically modified people are now referred to as Homo borgenesis, not Homo sapiens. You can see it in the very first, I think it's the second page actually, in the NASA Langley research paper on fifth generation warfare. They say humans, whatever, and Borgs. So they've already said that people are not going to be Homo sapiens, and therefore the question arises, if Maria is no longer a human for purposes of the law because she's been genetically modified, then what protections does she enjoy under the penal code? Let's use the law against them, and we can do that. And that's one of the reasons why we're suing. And one of the ways I'm trying to stop them is, in our case, it's Robert V. Austin in the 10th Circuit. I put in front of the court the question, is it true that people who were given mRNA gene therapy shots are in fact now the property, the chattel property of the patent holders? And what's interesting is the Department of Justice, who defends the Department of Defense, Health and Human Services, and the FDA, all at the same time they defend them, didn't deny it.